Hey everyone, it's me, Joe Saiyan. Today we're going to be doing a build video for Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra, but before we begin I need to point out a couple things. So if you don't want to listen to this intro, please hit the timestamps in the description or comments below to skip ahead. Now, I currently, at the time of recording, am a part of the Squadra Creators Program, copyright of Bird Studio, SHUEISHA, TOEI, Animation, and Bandai Namco Entertainment Incorporated. Now, with that being said, Squadra is a free-to-play MOBA game designed to be played 4v4 competitively, and I am saying that I am by no means a pro. So, I'm not a pro, MOBAs are skill-based, future updates can invalidate the builds, and moving forward, build suggestions and card suggestions and skill suggestions are all only suggestions, and you should adjust as needed based on your skill level at playing this game. Thank you for watching, and let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alright everyone, it is Squadra time again, and today we are going to go ahead and do a build video for Zamasu. Zamasu actually was one of my favorite units, and he's been kind of a little bit complicated. He's pretty crazy, I'm not gonna lie. I do like him a lot. I think compared to other tanks, he's gonna definitely be overlooked quite a bit, but I do feel like he's one of the more fun tanks to be utilizing. So hopefully my suggestions in this video can give you a baseline of how to utilize the character to its best of his abilities, and make sure to comment your own personal builds down below after we're done. So, we are first and foremost going to go ahead and go over the builds, or not the build, but the, we're going to go over the breakdown of the unit first, and then after that we'll go through the skill suggestions and then the card suggestions. So starting off with his passive, he has body regeneration. Essentially, he has a little bar right below his HP bar that actually restores his HP as you lose HP. So when you hit an enemy or enemy heroes excluded with a skill, super attack is excluded, or rush attacks, the regeneration skill gauge will fill. So essentially you do want to farm enemies as much as possible so that you're constantly refilling that gauge back up. You do need to keep track of it. If your base HP is not at max, it will consume the gauge to gradually heal up. And if your HP is at 0, the gauge is filled above a certain percentage, and the gauge will fully consume to heal. So basically, as you can see on the screen there, Goku throws a Spirit Bomb, and it'll actually eat the Spirit Bomb if you would die, essentially. Pretty crazy ability, not gonna lie. Now, rush attacks is just a normal physical attack. Skill 1 is probably the most thing people like to abuse with this guy, though I don't feel like it's his best move. He fires multitudes of energy blasts in a direction, and it slows down the enemy's movement speed. It is nice, but the movement speed is only during the hit. It's not staying along afterwards. Now, the Divine Rush lunges forward in a target direction and drives enemies back. You can also use this as an escape tool as well at higher levels of the skill. Now, the Fierce God Slicer is probably what I would say is his best move, purely because it applies continuous damage to the enemy and it does a wide AoE range of an attack. At the time of recording anyways, the reason why this move is so good is because you can essentially continuously reactivate this to constantly apply stacks of continuous damage, and it just does a lot of damage in general. Now, this gets progressively less good towards the actual end or mid to late game, mostly because at that point we have characters that are doing bursts amounts of damage, and they're able to have large chunks of health, to the point where this isn't doing as much. But with support from your lane allies and your other friends, you should be able to essentially pick off their health with it. Now, his super attack actually makes him immune to all, so he is safe while he is using the ability, and it's also dragging enemies inwards, and it's applying movement speed down onto the enemies as well. I would say in lower level, like level 1, this probably isn't too crazy, but at level 2 and 3, it actually can be very useful. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go over the skills just a little bit here. So, skill 1, which is Heavenly Arrow, and it slowers the enemy. It's got a very small radius at level 1. At level 1, it's honestly not that intimidating. You can very easily miss. I mean, look at that. And it's just really quick. Not really anything in there. About 5-6 second cooldown. Not too crazy. Level 2, a little bit better, but it's pretty much only when you're right on top of them. That's the only time you're really going to be able to utilize it effectively. 7-second cooldown. Like I said, the movement speed down is only when you're right on top of them. It's not doing too much for you. Now, at level 3, all of a sudden, it gains a huge radius and actually becomes a useful skill. I'm not sure why they decided to use it like this, but this is when it is most useful. And even then, it is still pretty large cooldown for how slow it is, because that's a very slow attack. It's actually not that big of a radius. You can easily dodge it. And it's, I mean, if you miss, you're barely whiffing them and they're just barely getting slowed down. It's only enough to really slow them down in the moment. And in all honesty, it's not really doing that much damage. I mean, we're throwing it at a level 1 Vegeta and it's barely taking out a quarter of his health. Not even a quarter of his health, like an eighth of his health. We pump Vegeta's level up to our own level. I mean, it's literally a scratch. It's just, I feel like it used to be better, but anyways. So skill 2, little bit different here. You do have a nice little lunge out of there. My issue with it is that it's a huge 15-second cooldown, which is just absolutely crazy. 7-second cooldown with here. I mean, 7 seconds and 15, that's pretty crazy. So level 2 doesn't really go any further at level 2, but it has a little bit wider range of radius so you can hit the enemy away. But for some odd reason in training mode, knockback is broken. It's a nice little ability. I just don't feel like it's pushing too much or enough. And once again, if you, just like with Majin Buu or other characters that do force push enemies away with them, you do need to be careful of this, because when you do, you're forcing the enemy to focus up on you. Now, Zamasu can get away with this so long as you're properly built, so. And at level 3, it is a huge, much bigger radius where you can actually push all the way over here. Now, all the way from right here is kind of about where Vegeta was pushed back. It does have a pretty good amount of pushback over here. I do feel like it can be used more as an escape tool, in my personal suggestion, because you actually don't go that far, but the damage goes out this far. So you can actually use it as a poking tool as well, or an escape tool. The escape might not go that well. It really depends on just how much the enemy is on top of you. So you'll see that in the radius circle right here, right next to my head right here, there's a little tiny arrow. That little arrow is essentially where your body is going to land, and the other radius behind it is where the enemy's going to get hit or pushed back. So do keep in mind of the actual markers on the radius circle. Now with his skill level 3, the Fierce God Slicer, this is what I was saying was his primary bread and butter here. This is applying cooldown or damage over time. Very, very short cooldown of only about, what, 4 seconds? And you can just keep throwing it down. This doesn't really change too much. The AoE is what gets more as you level it up. So it just is a wider radius for you to utilize. No cooldown, no extra damage, no nothing. Now, the one thing I do want to go ahead and throw into here. So with Zamasu, I feel like you want to utilize perhaps some blue cards. The reason you want to utilize some blue cards is so you can lower the cooldown of your skills. So before, when we were using Fierce God Slicer, the continuous damage would end by the time we could reactivate the skill. Whereas with using the cooldown cards, we can start applying stacks. We can go up to 2, but it kind of caps off on that. So at level 3, you apply the stack, 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 and 4 is the maximum you can apply the stacks to the enemy. So this is his bread and butter in my opinion, but if you do not have enough of the blue cards, that's when I feel like there's a problem. So if you don't have enough blue cards, let's just say you chose build up instead, I think you'll have a much tighter radius of being able to actually like continuously get this off. I think you can still get it just barely. Level 3, yep, level 3. Level 4, yep. So with at least one blue card, it looks like you can still get it to activate. I think it actually is at lower levels that you might not have the time frame, but you essentially want blue cards to lower that window so you don't have to constantly be spamming the button in this case to apply those damage stacks. Let's take a look at his super attack. So at level 1, remember, it does apply immune to all. It is specifically around him. You don't throw it around at this point. It's literally right on top of his body. He's got a huge 90-second cooldown, of course, so it is going to be a little bit crazy on that part. Once again, I don't understand why training mode's a little busted with that. But so let's take a look at it at level 2. The stacks of continuous damage are crazy. All right, so once again, the radius goes up just a little bit more. Pretty nice, honestly. It's not too crazy, but it's not too small either. You're already going to be right in on the enemy anyways. So just applying this down, immune to all the entire time too, it also helps out quite a bit. It's essentially a tanking tool as well. You really need to defend a position. It's doing continuous damage. So you're actually safe on tower. Enemies can't really throw out anything, but it is dragging them into it. You could technically throw the super on top of a tower while they're attacking it, because a lot of time people wait until the last bloody second, and if you keep them in the tower, they'll actually get hurt by the tower. So with level 3 of the super attack, it is a much wider radius. This is like Spirit Bomb status here. So normally this would pull the enemy quite a bit in. Oh, I was incorrect. It does not do damage over time. It just slows him down the entire time that they're in it. So I take back what I said earlier. Still pretty nice, huge AoE circle. Does a nice little bit of damage here. As they're trying to escape, you can try and like push them back into the circle, constantly applying those buffs and so forth, slowing them down even further. Just make sure you keep applying the skill 3, because if you lose the stack, it's not as intimidating. You really want to keep that stack up. So yeah, I think that's pretty crazy the way he works. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people do overemphasize the skill 1 a bit. It does do a decent little bit of damage. It does slow down during skill level 3, but at the end of the day, I really do feel like this God Slicer right here is just a little bit crazy, especially with its range, so long as it hits. It's just a nice little bit of continuous damage, and especially the fact that you can just constantly apply it, and it's just doing crazy ticks of damage right here. I mean, look at level 3, and then level 4. Yeah, that crazy ticking, and then you can just keep applying it. Now, once again, this is why you kind of want like build up and so forth to keep up your defense, because you want to be right on top of the enemy. Now, as far as helpers go for Zamasu, just like any tank, his 2 only options, in my opinion, is going to be the Rildo decoy or the Kaba buff. Kaba, you could actually take use of because it does apply defense up. He's going to be wanting to stick into one spot a good portion of the time, so this isn't a terrible choice for you. But at the same time, decoy is a pretty nice one as well, where you can just kind of distract the enemy with the decoy, apply the God Slicer continuous damage buff, and even keep him trapped in an area where allies are attacking him. So I do feel like Rildo is a very obvious choice for him as a helper. And we're going to go ahead and go over the skill suggestions for Zamasu. Skill suggestions wise, I don't really have other choices, but I will go ahead and say that if you so wish to, you can by all means ignore my skill 1 usage. I personally don't see as much use in skill 1 as I do in the crazy level of continuous damage you get from skill 3. Skill 3's crazy level of continuous damage, just constantly applying it. You get any blue card at level 1 or level 2, and this is just constantly being stacked and activated, and you're applying crazy amounts of pressure, especially early on. Afterwards, I do feel like the nice little bit of poke with the skill 2 or the escape tool usage of it at level 4 and 5 helps out quite a bit. Now, argumentatively, you could actually take this level 5 and place it over on your super attack instead. I just don't feel like the super attack does enough at level 1 to really justify it at this point. It's more just to actually have it. It does a little bit of damage to enemies, but it's not going to kill a mini boss per se. So that is something to keep in mind. So yeah, at level 6, either go to super attack or go back up to your skill 2. Otherwise, you could throw it into skill 1 if you really want to have the little tiny amount of poke with this. By all means, you could do that. But otherwise, I feel like level 8 just has to be skill 3. You really just want to be constantly applying that continuous. That is his bread and butter. It's not giving him armor. It's not giving him extra HP or anything. But it is constantly throwing damage at the enemy, and it's just putting on an insane amount of pressure. Also remember that when you're utilizing this, Zamasu's passive is going off. While using this, it could be hitting other minions that are around the area of him, where you'll be building up his passive regeneration more easily and progressively, rather than trying to focus it somewhere else. So at level 10 and 11, I really do suggest just to throw it down into your super attack. At 10 and 11, we're at endgame status. We kind of want the giant super attack to be thrown out. Apply a lot of pressure to keep people in a spot for allies to really focus up on their attacks and so forth. I really feel like the super attack is the next easy push into. And lastly, you can pump it into the skill 1. If skill 1 had a little bit of a longer duration of the ki blast, if the movement speed down stayed along longer, I would give it more focus. If the cooldown was lower, I would suggest it even maybe more. But with the amount of damage you can do with the God Slicer, the push you can do with skill 2, and the pressure from super attacking, I just don't see any reason to go into skill 1 personally, but maybe I'm just not high enough skill level, and please let me know how using skill 1 over, say, skill 3 or skill 2 goes for you. I can see the argument between going skill 1 over skill 2. That's perfectly fine. I totally get that. But overall, skill 1 and 2 are probably his weakest in his kit, and I would still highly suggest, no matter what you do, to focus up on skill 3. And as I said, if you really want to focus more up on getting your skill 1, you can always just go into this instead. Go level 2 and 3 into God Slicer, and then 4 and 5 go moving into skill 1. At level 6, go down to your super, and then finally go for your poke. But otherwise, you still want to focus up God Slicer, level 8. You can apply a little bit more pressure with skill 1 if you so wish to. Slow them down so they can't escape your God Slicer, of course. That could be a nice back and forth. But otherwise, I think that this perfectly works out, either being one of these two builds specifically, aiming for full skill 3 to skill 2 and super, or aiming for skill 3 and skill 1, and then kind of mix matching both with skill 2 and super. I feel like this might be the more all-around build a lot of people will use. That being said, let's move on to the card suggestions, which I actually only have really one for, in all given honesty. Though I do feel like you could potentially utilize Strategic Escape. Zamasu, I feel like he's in combat so heavily that you really do want to have the build-up. I feel like without build-up, he's suffering just a little bit. He's going to be actively in combat quite a bit of the time, to the point of where I don't think barrier is going to help enough. It'll last for the 2 seconds, and then he'll just kind of get mopped unless you can run away for a good decent amount of time. I think there is some usage there that you could potentially force, but I just don't feel like it's good enough. But otherwise, Steel Skin and Build Up are a very nice defensive force into Zamasu, and then just Limit Breaking Jump for a blue card. You really do want to have at least 1 blue card on Zamasu so that you can abuse the crap out of his skill 3, essentially. This build down here, I don't typically like this level 2 card right here, but he does need another blue card in order to really easily abuse the skill 3 continuous damage, so that you have enough of a cooldown time to constantly applying stacks with that continuous damage. So, but anyways, I do think that's going to be it for the video, everyone. Please do go ahead and let me know down below in the comments how you chose to build your Zamasu builds during the fight. Are you going more skill 1 and skill 3, or are you just doing your own thing? Let me know down in the comments, and let me know what skill cards you're using. The cards are a big thing, and they do matter quite a bit. I am curious to see what card combinations people use to best utilize Zamasu. So, anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a good day and a good night.